Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the OMG It's Derek podcast. And this week, I'm once again joined by my beautifully handsome co-host, Mr. Kodeations. Yo, Mr. Kodeations, how are you doing tonight, my friend?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful, man. Thank you for having me back on the show that I co-host. No,
Having you back like I have you back. But no, we did miss you last week. If you guys watched the podcast from last week or 2 weeks ago, I guess we're doing these every 2 weeks now. But the podcast 2 weeks ago, I did one solo with one of my close friends that has grown from 0 followers on TikTok to he's about to hit 5 million in the last 2 years. He went from working a part-time job slinging mattresses at a mattress store to becoming a full-time creator in the last 2 years. So it was a really cool podcast. Unfortunately, because Mr. Kodeations is a busy man and works a full-time job on top of raising a family, on top of creating the wonderful content that so many of you consume, he was not able to attend that podcast with me just because of a conflict of schedules between, having that extra person. And we do want to continue having some of those guests on here and there. I'm hoping the next one, if you guys remember before the podcast with Nike Finesse, we did a podcast on the dangers of social media. I do have an expert lined up for a second part of that one that I think we are going to try to do after this podcast.
I'm excited.
So hopefully we can work it out so that Kodeations will be at that one. Again, it's a little hard for him now working a full-time job. He doesn't have the luxury us full-time content creators have.
Full-time over here making
$500 a month, calling myself a full-time content creator.
Hey, you got to start off sometime. Hey, you're still a full-time content creator no matter what amount of revenue you bring in.
I am doing it full-time right now.
You could be making zero money and you're still full-time. So
yep. So yeah, if you guys didn't check out that TikTok episode, I highly recommend it. Mr. Kodeations, did you get a chance to listen to it?
No, I have not. I absolutely have not. So yeah, I'm super excited though, because if you don't know, I did just start on TikTok, so that's pretty cool. So I've been working my magic over there. I got I think like 3 or 4 videos, but it's coming off. It's coming off. So I am eager to see. Eager to see if in 2 years I can hit 5 million. Followers.
Yeah, he actually did have some really good. So like the first half of it's kind of his backstory. How he started, how he grew, things like that. And then the second half, we went more into some of like the dirt for people on if you're starting today, how do you grow your TikTok? What are some of the strategies and techniques that are working today on TikTok? And he gave some really good ones, I thought. Some that I've been using TikTok now for about, 4 or 5 months myself. And there's some that I am starting to implement and seeing results from just in the last week from listening to some of his advice. So really cool dude, highly recommend that one. But that leads to the question, it's just me and Mr. Kodeations tonight. What are we talking about? What are we talking about, Kodeations?
We are talking about metaverses. That is right, baby.
What the hell is a metaverse? Do I need to give the viewers a definition of what I think we should? We're talking about?
Let's give them a base definition to start off the video.
I'm going to give them the Wikipedia definition just to make sure we're all on the same page here as you guys as the listeners, because we use the term metaverse, but I think we're specifically going to be talking more along the lines of a simulation, kind of like Matrix style, dodging the bullets, the fucking bullets whizzing by and fucking crazy. I just rewatched that trilogy, getting ready for Matrix 4 coming out like 2 weeks ago. I watched the whole trilogy. I love that. Is by far my favorite.
It's a good one. I think it was by far ahead of its time. I definitely think it was.
It was. But with that said, let me go ahead and give the viewers here at home and ourselves the official Wikipedia definition. I'm going to use Wikipedia because it's the first thing that popped up in Google when I typed in metaverse definition.
Everybody knows Wikipedia. It's the standard now. Webster has nothing on Wikipedia.
In schools across the world now.
Exactly. Webster has nothing on Wikipedia.
Webster who?
Exactly.
The metaverse is a collective virtual shared space created by the convergence of virtually enhanced physical reality and physically persistent virtual space, including the sum of all virtual worlds, augmented reality, and the internet. The word metaverse is made up of the prefix meta, meaning beyond, and the stem verse, back formation from universe. So the term is typically used to describe the concept of a future iteration of the internet made up of persistent shared 3D virtual spaces linked into a perceived virtual universe.
Right.
That was a fucking mouthful. Can you
So
try to break it down in layman
yes,
terms for us,
yes.
Kodeations?
Specifically the last sentence you said. The rest of it, the 5 sentences of
Ignore
it, was
that
completely completely way too scientific. The last sentence was perfect. It's basically a bunch of individual 3D, digital spaces combined together to make a virtual or digital universe. Basically, that's the best, easiest way kind of to explain what my version, or what this definition version of a metaverse is. Yes.
And what do you think the difference is between like using that term metaverse and then when people, because I always hear people kind of, like I said, they use that term metaverse, but then I hear people kind of talking more about like, a simulation like Matrix. Do you think they're the exact same thing? Do you think there's a difference to them? What would your, like, okay, we said what metaverse is, you gave the layman's, what would you say a simulation is then?
I think simulation is short-lived. I mean, me personally, I mean, like when the first thing that pops in my mind when I think of a simulation is I think of something, obviously, like the concept of it being virtual and not real is still on par with a metaverse. But for me personally, I think a simulation is more of like something short term that, you use to either test something, you know what I mean, or you're using to, experience something, but only on a short term basis. When I think of metaverse, I think of something of a more permanent entity. Like basically we've got the internet today and how the internet is accessed today, but instead of it being that, it's then going to be the metaverse. I mean, is going to be what it is, and it's going to be, as it says, multiple, or hundreds or billions of simulations, I guess would be the way you explain it, to make up this so-called metaverse. So I mean, that's kind of the way I look at the word simulation. But again, I mean, you can have multiple definitions under the simulation, I guess.
Yeah, I look at it kind of similar. I almost see a simulation. Again, whenever I hear that word, when people are talking about metaverses and virtual reality and augmented reality, I always think back to the Matrix. So I guess I don't know if the word just has a negative connotation to me, because if you look at the Matrix, they were trapped in that virtual world without knowledge. They were
Right.
more prisoners, they were slaves, they were being harvested. As for those that haven't watched the movie, spoiler alerts, but it's released in like 1992.
I don't think you need a
But
spoiler alert anymore at this point.
they were basically, humans had been turned into batteries,
Right.
and they were all trapped in this simulation of the real world. And that is my biggest thought between the two. Is I don't think a metaverse has to be like the real world. A simulation, I feel like, is it's trying to be similar to something else. It's trying to simulate something else. In the case of the Matrix, the real world. I think people thought we might head towards something like that, but I think as we've evolved and grown, like my thought is this, like, let me just get this kind of going right into it. My thought is like in a metaverse, I don't think I think it's okay to know that it's fake. Does that
Right.
make sense? We don't have
Yeah.
to be convinced that it's a real thing. I like the art style of Borderlands games, for example. I can't imagine a metaverse where everything looks just like the real world. I want some of those fucking crazy ass worlds that
Oh
I can
yeah.
go to
Oh
and
yeah.
travel to. More of like what you see in Ready Player One. I don't know if you ever seen that movie or
Yep.
not, or read the
Yep.
book, but more of like that versus the Matrix old style of a simulation. And I guess that's, that would probably be the good analogy to me. I feel like Ready Player One showed more of a multiverse, metaverse, whereas Matrix showed more of a simulation. And that's almost how I distinguish the two personally. Any
Yeah,
thoughts?
yeah. I mean, and I would agree with that 100%. Like, I mean, me personally, I think for me, when it comes to metaverses and it comes to these virtual digital spaces, or multiple spaces combined to one to make this universe, I think it's out of the realm of our normal world. Do you mean? You mean it's out of the realm of our normal universe? Meaning, like you said, there is nothing separating, from us or keeping us on the same playing field. So me looking as I do, wearing my regular everyday clothes, t-shirt and jeans, and a hat, I am not expecting, to leave my house, or in this case, my space, and go to, another, digital space, or another, world, and then all of a sudden expect my stuff to look the same as theirs. Like I'm expecting to see, a cat girl, do you know what I mean? Or expecting to see, a guy that, might be a lizard, or not even like animals, maybe the guy, is a completely punk rock, cyber punk rock guy, and then, but then, we're in a world of, medieval, you know what I mean? It really like, I don't think that there's any rules. You know what I mean? That's the beauty of it being digital. You know what I mean? Is that it's all developed and created to the unique individual. And I think that's what makes it what it is.
Yeah, and I think before we dive any deeper into some of this stuff, the first question coming to my mind, or the first thought is I would love to get your take on what do you think of a metaverse coming in the future? What are your personal, like, are you excited for metaverses? Are you nervous for metaverses? Like, I know some people think like, why would anybody in the world want to spend all their time in a digital world instead of the real world? Like, just where do you stand on the spectrum? What excites you or doesn't excite you about them? Or
Right.
maybe both, if you got a little of both, but kind of where do you stand? I think it would be good for the audience to know, because I think we both stand on the same side of this one, and I think it's mainly positive.
Yeah.
I think being gamers, being whatever, we're super excited for this world to come to fruition. But I would like to hear your personal take, kind of on
Yep.
where you stand with it.
Yep. So for me personally, yeah, I think you kind of already kind of hit the nail on the head, which is actually surprising
I
for
know I
our
can't stop
for our
talking.
stuff back and forth, right? I mean, me personally, I really think that I'm excited. I mean, I think that what's going to happen is, and again, I can't put years on it, or a time frame on it, or when or whatnot, but me personally, I think we're bringing VR to a point where it's becoming more than just a headset that you're able to put on and see something visually, right? And with that being said, the internet is constantly ever changing and growing, and it's basically becoming a staple, I guess, if you will, in human society. Like it's just a natural thing, and we're trying to make it easier and more readily available. And I think utilizing those individual aspects, from VR to, the internet being readily available, to, utilizing more and more of the internet into our daily lives. I mean, think about smart home stuff. I mean, that stuff's been blowing up, tremendously, within the past recent years. And I think all of this stuff together, we're in a way setting ourselves up for, I mean, something like a virtual, metaverse, to exist. Because in realistically, what happens when everybody has smart homes? I mean, what happens when everybody's car is self-driving itself? I mean, what happens with all this stuff? I mean, like at some point in time, we're not managing, we're not having to manage all of those things in our everyday lives, right? And that's going to be where I think, me personally, I'm excited to be able to see that creativity, from individuals, that are now no longer, bound by their physical, self, because, it is all driven by mind, if they are then able to still bring that creativity and create these, their own basically world, to be part of this metaverse. I mean, I think I don't know. I mean, it's a long-winded answer, but I mean, like, I'm super, super excited for it, because I think it adds a lot. It's basically the next step, in my personal opinion. We've got games, we've got 3D games, we've got VR. And I just think at this point, how freaking sweet would it be able to play or do whatever it is that you want to do in a video game when you sit down in your free time, but instead you're able to then plug into, this world that you have either created, or that you join other people, and you can basically be yourself, 100% unique, and not only that, I mean, take let's dive a little bit deeper. There, the opportunities are unlimited, right? I mean, so technically you could be going to work. You could be plugged into this machine, and you could literally, be in a metaverse, but still go to work. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can still do things in this metaverse, that could net some sort of, metaverse currency, that you can then use that currency to, increase your stuff. I mean, you can, in
Not even that,
theory.
not to interrupt you, but
Yeah,
not
go ahead.
even that. So I don't know how into VR you are right now. But I've recently bought one of the Facebook Quest 2s, and I've
Okay.
been super into it. And there is even a app where you are in a room. You can design this room however you want. You're in a room with a computer sitting in front of you, and it can be your computer in the real world on the screen, and you're doing stuff in the metaverse, in this world, that is causing stuff to happen in real life because it's your actual computer screen that you're seeing, your real life computer in this world.
Interesting. That's a little
It's
bit
pretty it's
it's a
pretty
little bit
wild,
crazy.
man.
Yeah, that's very
It's
interesting.
it's pretty wild. Not to cut you off there, but just when you're
Yeah.
mentioning, like, people would be like, and it makes me wonder, like, will people be working in this metaverse? Imagine you're at home, this whole remote work, the remote works happening with COVID and everything, and you're at home and you have this VR headset on, and you're doing something like that where you're in the VR world, but the computer that is in front of you is in the VR world and you're using it just like you would. But then you got your boss can come in right here and talk to you
Right.
in this
Right.
VR world, or the so
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a
Yeah,
crazy thing.
your work and the company that you work for, or you own or whatever is predicted in that metaverse. I mean, your boss, like I said, you can see each other in this metaverse, but yet in reality, outside of the metaverse, you're technically sitting at home. I mean, working from home, if you will. You know what I mean? But then instead now, you're in this metaverse doing whatever it is, that's part of. But the beauty of it is, I think the metaverse offers so much more than that. I mean, I think
Oh
that's
yeah.
I think that's our reality, now, you know what I mean? So it's easy for us to assume, that could be portrayed, or that's what it would be like in the metaverse. But instead, I'm looking at it in more terms of, you know, utilizing this metaverse, or what I'm excited for the most out of metaverses is that creativity. I'm really, really excited to see, that guy with no arms. I mean, in reality, you know what I mean? But then now can be whatever he desires to be, in this metaverse. He can carry on, whatever his aspirations or, creativity side of things are in there. Or, maybe that chick, that's been bullied her entire life or whatever, that's not happy with, something, what I mean, there, or maybe that kid that has a rough childhood, or lives in a rough home, then can escape, through something like this type of metaverse, that they create for themselves, I mean, and I think we've already, we've already got games, like, Roblox, who are doing similar aspects, think about, GTA 5, your role play stuff. I know it's not you in the game, but you're playing a character, but like in theory, you're still role playing that out as if it was its own mini metaverse. You guys are own mini world, you creating this world that you're doing. Imagine that being you though, like you
Yeah,
plugged in and you're doing that, not a
and just to
controller.
fill in the listeners, Kodeations, I got involved, as you guys know, and a lot of hopefully. uh I'm a gamer. We talk about gaming a lot. I stream on Twitch, and lately I've been playing exclusively Grand Theft Auto 5 has a bunch of mods and modded servers out, where they do role play servers, which is exactly as Codations was just saying. You are your character in the game, so you purposely go in this world, this server, which is just the GTA world, which is called Los Santos, and like, you don't break character. You play your character like that's you. You don't talk about stuff that outside of what your character would know in the game. Everybody else is doing that as well. And it's really interesting. It's my first time. I've played role play games and stuff, RPGs, in the past. I've always been a big fan of them, but this is the first time where I've played something, even like a game like World of Warcraft, uh, which is a massively multiplayer online game. This is the first time I've joined something where you're doing this with tons of people, where you're then actually role playing your characters. In a game like World of Warcraft, you didn't do that. You were just playing with the people. You talked about real life. You talked about things going on with real life with friends you made in the game. But this, you do none of that. It's strictly playing the character that you're playing.
Yeah,
So
it's
it's
RP,
really
it's
cool and
R
unique.
Yeah, it's RP. I mean, it's role playing versus it being an RPG of a genre of a game where you're
Yep.
picking a class to play. Like, sure, you're picking a class to play because that class has a role in that game, as a team, but that's not RPing,
Yep. Yep.
you're role playing in this GTA world. But what you didn't mention that I wanted to add to your comment was you're also part of that community. You know what
Oh
I mean?
yeah.
So that world, that is the GTA server, that you're a part of, you're playing yourself, but you're also playing in that community. You know what I mean? So you are, whatever your name is in that character, in that role, you are now that part of that community, as if you existed in that world, you know what I mean? Realistically. And that's what's really cool. I mean, again, bringing that same concept. I mean, this is just like the shallowest of part of the concept that it could be, but
Yeah.
bringing
Yeah.
that same
Yeah.
idea or ideology into a metaverse. I'm just super excited about that. I think there's
And I wonder how many people play themselves versus play characters they make up. And it might even be a combination of, just like in a game, you switch characters. You could have several characters that you play, and maybe even one of them is kind of your real self, that you only play with select people or something.
right.
But yeah, it definitely is really, really neat. And you're right. Like even in that, and not to beat a dead horse, but just because I do want people to understand this, it's like my character's name in the game is James Madison. He has his own life, like
Right.
outside of me. Like people tell stories not in that community, not about Derek Salyers, but
Right.
about James Madison.
Right.
This like
Exactly.
the run-ins he had in with cops or this, this gang or whatever, like has nothing to do with me. And
Right.
it's almost like the creation of this new person that does
Yeah.
exist for a lot of people.
Right.
As
Right. But that's
crazy as that seems,
right. But the same
he
thing
has become
exists.
a real person for a lot of these other people.
Right, but the same thing goes for you and those other people. I mean, you meet their
Oh yeah,
characters, like you
100%.
just said. Like you just said. I mean, me personally, I've never done what you're doing, but I've tuned into your streams, your live streams when you are participating in this, and as a person looking from the outside, I mean, you meet some crazy people. I mean, some of these people, you roll upon, even if they are acting or even if they are portraying something else or, this character they created, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter in a metaverse. I mean, in a metaverse, you be who you want to be when you want to be that person. You know what I mean? So, it's just really wicked and really cool to be able to see some of these characters that you do come across in this world, of just GTA RP. I apologize for linking the two. I know it's not the podcast for this, but I know we're just talking about
No,
it's
no,
kind
no.
of to
Yeah,
me,
yeah.
it
I mean,
reminds me.
I think it's you're starting in all these different areas like VR. A lot of like role playing is becoming super popular. I think this is all the start of what is when somebody puts all of this together in a good way. I think that and that's kind of like, so I was gonna ask that, but like what do you think needs to happen for the metaverse? And this is kind of a big question. And maybe, but the question is, what do you think needs to happen before boom, we have a metaverse? Because we do have all these little parts that in my eyes, anyways, I don't know about you, you have to answer, but in my eyes, I see the start of this metaverse thing forming. VR chat, some of the VR programs over here, some of these role play servers, because it's not just GTA, there's popular DayZ world role play
Oh
servers
yeah. Oh
starting
yeah.
now. A lot of people, might have heard of No Pixel, but they're doing a lot of. There's Red Dead Redemption 2 role play servers starting up. Like it's just becoming more popular, and people are getting used to you having a separate persona on, in these games. But anyways, like so that's kind of a big question, and I don't know if we should move directly to that or because I did have a couple other questions, kind of what we were talking about. So maybe let me take one step back, answer these shorter questions, but I
Yep.
do want to kind of go into that of what do you think needs to happen? Like what needs to come together for us to boom, say, boom, here's metaverse. It's
Right.
here.
Right.
But the first question is, so do you think, because we were talking about like, going in for work do you think we ever go full time into a metaverse? Like, do you think human society, like you like almost like, and not matrix style in terms of the universe where we don't know, but more of just like you just plug in indefinitely, or somehow like you upload your consciousness to the metaverse and you are just, that's it.
I
Like,
think,
you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't
yeah,
know.
no,
Cause that part's a little more further out. I don't think a lot of people understand that. Like at one day, like my personal belief is the way we achieve immortality. I think we've talked about this before.
Yep.
Is probably at least first through the use of technology, meaning we find a way to download our brains into the metaverse, the internet, whatever this thing becomes. I think we hit that before we hit a physical immortality.
Yeah. I mean, I think
But
kinda.
the
I
question is
mean,
full
me
time
personally,
into a metaverse.
right. I mean, I obviously I think that the technology isn't 100% there for us to make it into a full-time metaverse. I mean, I think at least not right now, and 2021, if in case if anybody's listening to this, 10 years from now, I think me personally, it's hard for me to grasp that concept. And that's, I guess, the best way for me to answer it is because, do I think it's possible in the future in achieving that? Yes, I do, right? But I also find it really hard to understand and accept it. Do you know what I mean? Even though I am super excited, about metaverses being a thing. You know what I mean? And I think the reason, or where the what's the word? Not fear, but you know what I'm saying? Like I think where that's coming from.
Hesitation.
Yeah, I think that hesitation, or that hard to understand or to see it, becoming to life, or becoming a reality, is the fear. I mean, I think it's the fear of the no longer, would that normal everyday reality that me and you have grown to know. I'm 27. I know you're older than me, but all of that we have known, becoming the past. No longer a thing. And then we shift into this new age, this full-time metaverse, simulation world, which again, not saying it's a bad thing. I think it's hard to understand. And really, pinpoint of how that would look, how that change would take place, like, and then shifting a little bit over to the other part that you mentioned about, plugging your conscience in and all the other stuff. Me personally, I don't think that would be the first step. I mean, me personally, I think what's going to end up happening is I think we will achieve physical immortality, and then I think we will figure out how to take that fake physical immortality. I mean, and then shift it into the virtual or technology world. And what I mean by that is I mean, we're already heading down the direction of trying to come up with ways utilizing technology that can sustain our physical being. You know what I mean? So for instance, one of the biggest drawbacks of technology in general for years when it comes to this stuff has been the lazy aspect, right? Or like the fact that your body is not being utilized as much when you are plugged into some sort of technology form, right? And with that being said, I think that's the first level. I think, they're working on ways to, entertain or to utilize the physical body, in order to, project what you're doing in, the virtual world. Now, however, when it comes to full time, that can't be the case, right? Because there's nobody out here to monitor that full, you know what I mean? That full, that physical body, you know what I mean, to make sure that they're doing that. So I think instead of movement being the answer, or them trying to figure out some sort of way with, movement or activity to project what you're doing in the game, I think what they're working on, or what they're probably going to eventually put in, is going to be some sort of, machine or something that will then regulate things like brand new blood, brand new oxygen, all these things that will then keep your physical shell, your body, intact and healthy. So then that way, if you ever did unplug full time from that metaverse, you could then still move in reality. Now I don't know, because maybe if it is full time, you would never need to unplug, I guess. So I mean, I guess in that case it would be,
Yeah, I also
I
think
don't
the
know.
cost associated with trying to keep everybody's physical bodies alive would become extremely costly. I'm
Right.
not saying it's impossible. And just to clarify, uh, I wasn't saying necessarily that we would plug, like that downloading our consciousness would be the first step. I do think we'll be physical in the metaverse for a while first. I don't even know. Like honestly, I'm a believer in immortality. I
Right.
think in some form. I don't know if it's physical. I don't know, but I believe that there's a chance we achieve immortality some way. I will say, I don't know that it's in our lifetimes.
Right.
Maybe our kids, maybe like and I'm talking, when I say our kids, I'm talking about like, our sons
my
that are
11-month old. Yeah.
my son that's about to turn 2. Like maybe that young, maybe they have a chance, because what needs to happen first is not actually immortality, but that the life expectancy has to grow per year. The advancements in medicine need to happen at a rate that then you just don't die as they keep advancing. And we'll probably hit that first, which means like our kids start growing up, they hit 50 years old, but life expectancy hits 200. They get up to, another 50 years, 100, but now life expectancy is 250 or 300. I think that happens first, but that basically becomes a immortality in a sense, as long as we can then continue increasing that life expectancy. Or again, I think we might go pure digital, and it just be that when it's your time to pass in the earth, if we are still sticking around in physical form and we are still concerned with the physical world, which I have my doubts about that, which we can go into. But if we are, then it might just be that we get to the point where we die, and then we upload our consciousness, if we're able to do so, and our physical body dies and we just live in the cloud. Because like you're saying, I just think it becomes too expensive to keep all of the bodies alive if we're not using them in the real world anyways. And the reason I say that is because my belief is more the fact that we go 100% in and we never come out, and we don't need our bodies anymore. We integrate more with the machines, because I just think we're like, everybody's like, oh, the real life, like, there's something about the physical world. I don't think people realize that we will reach a point where if you choose, you would not be able to distinguish. Like we say, there'll be all these crazy worlds in the metaverse, but there will also be an Earth that looks exactly like somebody will make that. Google Earth will probably be the ones that make that, but that world will exist in the metaverse, and it'll look so much like the real one. And then more importantly, because like I said, having weird looking shit, I don't think affects the reality of the metaverse. It's weird to say the reality of the metaverse, but the plug-in, the way your brain, whether Elon Musk makes some kind of neural link that does this, or somebody else, the way that we interact with the metaverse triggers our brains to where we can't tell the difference if we choose. Like there's a switch we can hit, and it's like, remind me in 2 hours that I'm in the metaverse, because otherwise I won't even fucking know it. When we reach that point and you can walk around in the metaverse in an Earth when you want to, and you can't tell the difference from the physical one, why does the physical world become important outside of just keeping shit going, which will probably be done with machines, so that we can continue being in the metaverses.
Right. And that's what that was the only devil's advocate question that I was going to say was, okay, so, and I like that. And I would understand, and I can see that working to be the case. The only question that I would have is if let's say that's the avenue that they run down, right, where people start to pass away, after the life expectancy has pretty much, hit 200 or whatever the magic number is, or forever, with the medicine being, so advanced, people just don't die. If the people were to get to a point where they would pass away, and like you said, they would then inject or put that person into the cloud, or, into that metaverse or that, digital space, and they're no longer physical. My only question is, so what happens at the end? So what happens when there's the last person in the physical world? I mean, like, who is still, moving those people, those, putting those people in? Does that last person, or whoever that, whatever ends up happening at the end there, are those the people who have the ability to cut off that metaverse? You know what I mean? Like, because at some point, the metaverse exists, right? But you have to be able to reach that metaverse. And if there's no way to reach that metaverse by cutting it off, then you see what I'm saying? So like, somebody would be left with some really big power.
Yeah. My guess would be, number one, I get what you're saying. I just don't see that being a possibility for a couple different reasons. Number one, it could very well be that we still, again, that goes back to my question of, do we ever go full time in the metaverse? Maybe some of us do, maybe some of us don't. Maybe we have real human workers in a thing, or maybe we have mechs in the real world that we control in the universe as fucking like Android, like we're sitting in a control, fucking like a FPV drone, but only it's mech, things,
Yep.
and we're doing all the work in the real world while we're in the metaverse. Or maybe it's completely autonomous and it's all done by machines. I think any of those work. In terms of the actual systems, I think they'll be guarded. We will, whether that's we have people in mech suits, maybe that's part of your real job. You're in the metaverse, but you're in a mech suit, in the metaverse, controlling a mech in the real world that's guarding these facilities that provide the metaverse. But I also think a lot of it will come through, like, the technology we've seen with cryptocurrencies, not to go down that rabbit hole, but
Right.
like Bitcoin, if you knock out all the mining operations in China, Bitcoin still exists. It's still there. You just, like, all the information that's on that network still exists unless you get rid of every single full node on the network in the world.
Right.
And as you're trying to take out nodes in part of the world, you might take out Australia, head on over to the United States, take care of there. While you're over there, Australia's popping up nodes again. Like, right. It would be hard, I think, to completely eradicate a network. I mean, it would have to be like a full scale attack on all, like, power networks in the world. All, like, does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I totally get it. And not only that, one thing that I actually thought was kind of cool that I didn't think about was in the metaverse working in the reality, which is very interesting.
That's what I was trying to explain with, like, being in the VR and your control and stuff happening. Like, I can send an email in the real world in the VR. Like, I can use the computer, just like,
I just
that's what I was trying to explain.
I just wasn't.
You can do shit in the metaverse that then happens in the real world.
Right, but that makes sense. Yeah, I wasn't connecting that reality, but that makes perfect sense. I mean, you could, in essence, have people, trained in the metaverse. You mean, to their job to remain in the metaverse and to keep it safe for everybody, aka soldier, would then be protecting the metaverse in reality. I mean, which is very interesting.
Through the metaverse.
Right. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. It's very interesting, when you think about it in terms of that way, because it makes a lot of sense. You could, in turn, you would be doing that, you know what I mean? And I don't know. So I guess that leads me to my next thing, which might be running down a rabbit hole, but do you think, speaking of metaverses and utilizing the stuff that we've talked about already, do you think there'll be some resistance? Do you think that there would be some sort of not rebellion, but do you think that there would be another side of it? I mean, I know maybe I've just watched too many movies, but how you always seen, you've got the pro people, that are for something huge like this, whether it's technology, whether it's robots, whether it's whatever, something like I, Robot, the movie, shout out to Will Smith. But, with that being the case, do you think that there is inevitably going to be something like that, where there might be a rebellion group or a group of, people in reality that don't agree with it or don't think that it should be a thing, and instead their full-time job is to try to oppose it? I mean, is that
definitely? I mean, that you see that with every new technology that comes. That's just human nature. I mean, we see it with social media. We all know somebody that has 0 social media accounts. At least I assume. I mean, maybe maybe you don't know somebody that has that.
No, I do.
But yeah, I know someone. Like, my dad has 0, he gets on the internet, but has 0 social media, has never made an account, no Facebook, no Twitter, nothing. He just gets on to, he sells some stuff on eBay, looks and buys and sells some stuff on Craigslist, and might read the news. That's his internet usage. When we go into this, yeah, of course there's going to be people like, no, the real world's better, 100%. Even if objectively that doesn't make sense, because you can have the real world, but now you can teleport over to Paris for lunch at a cafe with your significant other, or for a business meeting, or you have the real world that's indistinguishable. It feels just like the real world. If you get punched in the game, you don't physically get hurt in real life, but you feel the pain of that punch. You feel like the sensations, the emotions, the feelings that convince you it's real are there. But then you can teleport anywhere you want. You can go, you can start in the morning working and then decide you want to go hike Mount Everest at night, or go into any of the other worlds in the multiverse, go into a fucking Borderlands style world and just shoot bad guys out, whatever you want to do. And at like the push of a button, you're there and it feels real and it feels like real life. Objectively, that would be better. We can upload consciousness to the thing. You don't die, you have immortality. Objectively, we would say that would probably be better. There's still going to be people who fight that, just like there's people that fight social media. Just like when Apple, the first smartphone, Apple iPhone came out, everybody was convinced, a physical keyboard on my BlackBerry is better. We don't need all that. We just need to make calls. Today, even though we know those people, they're very much the minority. And that's kind of the point I want. So even though we have that, will it be a resistance? Will it be a rebellion? Probably not, because most of humanity will probably accept it, just like we do with almost all technology.
I just didn't know. Like, I was actually meaning actual physical rebellion. I just was meaning
maybe,
like,
but
I was meaning
I don't think
more
they can
in terms
overwhelm
of
90% of us. If 90% of us are in the metaverse and we have all the fucking mech robots that we were just talking about, what are they going to do with their puny arms?
Well, right. No, I know. I'm just saying, in terms of, like physical, now, sure, we've got riots. In the States, here in the United States, if you don't know, we're both in the United States recording this podcast, but, if, I'm saying, we've got riots, we've got peaceful protests, we've got, people bringing pink wheelbarrows and dumping it full of cow poop, right? You've got things like that to make their point, right? I'm saying in terms of actual physical full on, violence, them taking down mechs, destroying stuff. Now, granted, it's not actually, maybe a person physically in the mech, the person's in the metaverse, but I'm saying in terms of them, like, actually trying to sabotage it. Do you think that there would be that kind of some type of a resistance?
I think something? Normally for resistance or rebellion like that, I'm not an expert in resistances or rebellions or anything, but I would think there would need to be so much of the population that thinks that something is a bad idea. That's when we typically see it. When we typically see those type of outbreaks in society and where, you're talking a war basically,
right?
When you say rebellion, I mean, we're using that because that's sci-fi terms but in real life, we would call that a war when two sides clash. A lot of times, most of the time, that is when people become 50-50 split over something. I don't know that we see a 50-50 split. Again, I'm no expert. So very well, I guess, is there a chance of it? Sure. But my personal belief is I just don't think we see a 50-50 split. I think we see something like a 95-5% split. And I just don't think at that level, just like, that would be like somebody today deciding that they're gonna make war about us having cell phones. The amount of people that don't have cell phones is so small that what kind of war are they going to put up? You know what I mean? Like, would you even call it a war at that point? Because it's going to be so few people trying to attack so fucking many people.
Right. Well, and not only that,
so I think it would be similar to that.
Yeah, and I don't think that it would ever, if that was the case, I don't think that it would ever manifest, like you said, to be considered a war at all, because it just there would be enough people. I mean, there at some point it would just be more of a,
and there wouldn't be enough eyes on it. I mean, because at the end of the day, like, the problem would be that everybody that they're trying to convince to come on their sides aren't in the real world to hear their message.
They're in the metaverse.
So they would almost have, just like you see a lot of people join social media nowadays. It always cracks me up when I see people that their only reason to be on social media is to try to convince other people to get off social media. It's like you became the thing you despise. Like in the end, in the end, you became the villain. I think that's a Batman quote, or when when you see yourself become the villain or whatever. It's like that. Like, what are you going to do? Join the metaverse to tell us all to get out of the metaverse? Like,
right.
I don't know. I just don't see. Now, again, that's assuming that everything with the metaverse is 51% better positive than the negative. Like, the positives have to outweigh it. Like social media, we're seeing that back and forth right now, because a lot of people are starting to realize, as we talked about in 2 episodes ago of the podcast, a lot more people are starting to see a lot of the negatives of social media. So we're starting to see that. If we see that with the metaverse, if we see that there's all these negatives and more of these negatives come up, then obviously that's going to grow the amount of people thinking maybe this isn't a good idea. And that could potentially get us to that, 50-50 split. And when I say 50-50 split, maybe it's 70-30, maybe it's 60-40, but it's
Right.
more towards that middle split of two opposing sides saying, versus again, as long as it's a positive experience, like 95% of people would not give this thing up. They think the pros outweigh the cons. We all know there's cons of this device, but 95% of us think that the pros outweigh those cons. As long as that's the same mindset with the metaverse, I don't think we run into that again. That was a long-winded answer.
Yeah, but I
Whole
get what
lot
you're
of
saying
stuff,
though.
but
But you said a lot in that same answer. I mean, the end of the day, yeah. I mean, I think there's gonna be resistance, just like there's resistance with anything. I mean, social media, that, like you said, there's people that also are resistant to that. Now, again, I do agree with you in the sense of I think there's more positives than there are negatives of something like that being, in the metaverse. Now, I do agree with you in terms of I don't know if it'll technically happen in our lifetime. Obviously, I know that we're going to make progress, more in, technology advancements, in our lifetime. But I definitely don't think that I don't see a large scale metaverse like actually, coming into play. But I definitely think that when that time comes, there still might be whatever, you know, I don't want to call it a year, but whatever you want to say, whatever that comes, I think there will definitely be some people who might opt out. That might
100%.
not partake, into it because it will be the new thing or be, whatever it is, with it being, unknown and all this other stuff. But I definitely can see it becoming a full-time thing where, we are no longer worried about our physical body and the physical world. And instead we've created these our own unique worlds in this metaverse. And I think that's what's a really good selling point.
Yep. And not only, just to take it a step further, even people that opt into it may very well opt out one day. They might decide I'm ready to die. That's a whole nother that we don't even think about. But just because someone opts into this metaverse and they have let's say that then immortality comes, then we have the whole question of when do you choose to die? And do you ever choose to die? Do humans actually want immortality? Once we have it, do we then want
is
death?
It something that we actually desire? Right, exactly, right. Which makes sense. Have you ever seen this? Kind of reminds me, have you ever seen the show Altered Carbon?
I've heard of it. I've not seen any episodes whatsoever.
So it's actually really cool. So I mean, it's not an it's I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain. You have to watch it, but basically the whole premise behind the show is they do live in this, metaverse, world, right? And but the difference is like you said, it's a metaverse that is physical world, right? So I mean, it's a futuristic, cyberpunkish, physical world that they have created. You know what I mean? So you look like a human, or an alien, whatever, but you were walking around, doing, like you said, a job. You have some sort of job in this world. You've got buildings, you've got houses, you got your personal belongings, things that you own, things like that. But instead of the metaverse being done and developed by individual people or companies, it's governments have created this metaverse is basically what has happened. And the whole premise behind the show is somebody, has figured out how to delete basically or kill or, whatever these people in this metaverse.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? So so that's the whole premise behind the show. Now I'm not going to spoil the show because it's actually really good, and I highly suggest you watching it along with anybody else.
Sounds like something I'd enjoy.
Yeah, along with anybody else listening, that definitely finds it interesting. But basically, that's the whole setup behind the show is somebody has found a way to terminate, I guess is the term I think they actually use in there. It's not kill, because that's like a a human word. You know what I mean? It's more of it's called terminate. But they found a way to terminate somebody from this virtual existence, and they're gone forever. Like there's no way to get them back into this virtual world because the physical world doesn't exist. Like it's completely in shambles, like nuclear, blowed up, gone, right? So So again, this is kind of what it reminds me of, you know what I mean? And when I start thinking about all this other stuff that I've seen and, watch all this sci-fi stuff, I know it's not actual reality, but when you think about kind of that stuff, it's really interesting. It probably is scary to some people, but it's very intriguing to me because I am very curious to see how it plays out. You mean,
Yeah.
does it play out like these, sci-fi, shows and movies and directions have, shown us in, at that time years, light years beforehand. Do you know what I mean? Then at that point when it was the thing, or is it something completely different? You know what I mean? Is it, you make up your own shit as soon as you get in there? I don't know. It's interesting.
I think it always becomes something we didn't really picture for the most part. There very well could be those aspects of it, but that's the crazy thing. I mean, we're having these ideas, we're throwing out these ideas, we're throwing out these thoughts. Obviously, this is something we've both thought about before, because we're talking about some, pretty crazy stuff to me. I know I've thought about this kind of stuff before, but
yeah.
I would say like even like people like us, and I would even go so far as to say like experts in multiverses and virtual reality and augmented reality and stuff. I don't think they have any clue what once this stuff actually happens, what it looks 50 years down the road. I mean, I think it blows our minds. Does a lot of the stuff we're talking about exist in there? Sure. But then a whole lot fucking more that we had no fucking clue
I'm sure
could even exist because we just didn't. The technologies that'll come that will then allow further technologies and shit that we just I mean, just like the creation of cryptocurrencies. I mean, they've been like, it's like we think cryptocurrency is brand new. Okay, but what is cryptocurrencies? Money's been around forever. We've always, at one point, society traded seashells. I mean, there's a place where they found that they use seashells as a currency,
right,
to trade, to make. We've always like worked on improving our currency systems, but then we like become shocked by this new technology that comes out, and like we didn't even see it coming. It came from some anonymous guy on the internet that just released a source code. And I think it's the same type of thing. Like we have all these ideas, like we know better universes, better games, better VR, better this is coming. But what that actually is going to look like, I don't think we have any fucking clue. Outside of a bunch of guesses. And I don't mean that. I'm just saying, like, I think it gets crazy as fuck, man.
I'm sure it does.
I think it gets crazy as fuck. I'm sure. So I share in your sentiment that personally, I'm excited for it. I don't know. I've always been a human that has bought into technology as a whole, as I think most millennials, people our age and lower, have at this point, because we've grown up with technology. But I've bought in full-hearted into technology. Oh, you can't hear me?
Oh, I can now. That's weird. What did you just touch?
I didn't touch anything. I just moved my mouse a bit.
Huh.
I cut this part out.
Yeah, I know. No, that's why I didn't say anything. I just kind of let you freeze out so you can bring it back. No, all of a sudden you were talking and then it just did this. It did that audio sound where it goes like where it's like or like, it kind of like faded out, and then I couldn't hear you anymore. And then it wasn't until you moved your mouse or I moved my mouse on my screen that brought us back. But anyways, continue.
All right.
The last part I heard was you said it can get super crazy or whatever, and then I lost you.
Yeah, I think, with the technology we have, for you guys, just to let you guys know on the podcast, we just had a little bit of an audio issue there. So if this part gets broken a little bit and the sentence I was saying gets a little jumbled, that is why. But basically what I was saying, Kodeations, was I just think the technology gets crazy. We don't understand where it's going. But I, like yourself, am super excited for where it is, like for technology in general. I've always been a fan of it. I've always been kind of pro technology. I've not like, is there downsides to technology? Like we talked about social media. Is there downsides to VR? Is there downsides to cryptocurrencies? Are there going to be downsides to multiverses and metaverses and VR and all that? Probably. But I think the benefits 90% of the time outweigh the negatives. So I'm just a huge fan in general. So I was saying all that original stuff to just kind of agree with you that I'm super excited to see where it goes as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah, 100%. And just to add on to the idea that you were talking about, because it's bothering me and I want to say it, but
Sure.
think back when we were, kids, like super young, and you were playing on a gaming console, whatever your first gaming console was, whether it was the Atari, whether it was Sega, Nintendo, whatever it was. And imagine playing it then, right? And you never ever, like, you thought it was the best thing that it could ever possibly exist in that form, right? But then now, like, you would have never, like you were talking about, you don't know what's coming, and you're right, because now we've got 4K, and 8K and all these other, crazy, insane resolutions. When we look at a game or we look at a movie, if I can't see, the hairs on the person arm, like, to me, that's not the highest quality, that I know that I can get right now. You know what I mean? And then when you look back at what you used to look at and thought it was amazing, it's like, it's crazy. But that's a really good example, of, technology advancing, way beyond of what we could comprehend at that time. You know what I mean? We didn't know that something like 4K existed when I was playing on the Nintendo or even the PlayStation 1. You know what I mean? When I'm watching Tony Hawk Pro Skater, game, you know what I mean? I thought that was the best. I'm like, holy cow, this is sweet. I can put a beanie on my guy. I can put some pants on him, check out his skateboard. You know what I mean? And then now you look at that and it's insane. You look at it and you're like, this is horrible. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
for me, it was like on PC, like Final Fantasy VII, the Tomb Raider games, the Need for Speed games. That's really when I thought, like, wow, we hit the pinnacle of look how good this shit look. Because even with Sega and stuff, I kind of always had like the, it looks like Sega. Like I kind of knew we could get better. But once we had that stuff, it was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then, like you said, and just beyond that, not just the quality, but things like the VR headsets we have. Again, going back to this Quest 2 I picked up, but even like the hand tracking thing, like you don't even need controllers. Like it can track your hands, watch all your fingers move in real life. You can pinch stuff and pull stuff and all in this VR space with just your hands, no controllers, no, like they got like the higher frame rates that we're seeing. Just, you never would have thought, you would see this stuff in, even like, a game I've really been enjoying on there, which is super popular VR game, but Beat Saber. Have you played VR at all or no? Oh my God, how have you
Do
not
you
bought
do
a
you
Quest 2?
do you want to laugh? Do you want to laugh at
$299,
listen,
dude.
listen, do you want to laugh at my VR? Because we're already talking about, do you want to laugh at my VR experience? My
Sure.
VR experience, no joke, is the $10 cardboard, piece that you pull out of the package and you put your I'm gonna
I
say it. I'm
know.
gonna say it. Old school smartphone, the one of the very first Samsung Galaxy phones, in the front of this piece of cardboard, and it's like 2 inches from your eyeballs. And that is the only VR experience I've ever had in my life.
It's, to me, like, I will say this with the Quest 2, I have found myself completely pulled into the universe. Meaning so much that, like, I was playing this one game, and I'll go back to Beat Saber in 1 minute. Don't think I forgot anybody listening. But I went into this one game, dude, and I'm flying through the air with like these like I got a rocket pack, and I'm like throwing this frisbee to try to score a goal. And I'm going and I'm moving around, and I grabbed, like, you can grab stuff to like stop your character because it's like outer space. So if you do thrusters in a direction, you're gonna keep going in that direction until you like either thrust back or grab something to stop. I grabbed something to stop and I fell over in real life because of the momentum of like I just fell over in my living room, dude, because of like the
That's
momentum in
interesting.
the game, and just so in my body, like, thought it was in this world moving, that then when I stopped in the game, my body tried to counteract what it thought I was moving to stop, but because I was already standing still in real life, I just
Right.
fell over. So
Which
and
is
like,
which is
and
crazy.
like this Beat Saber game, dude, it is such a cardio workout in fucking 30 minutes of doing it. But it doesn't even feel like it's so fun. It doesn't feel like going and doing 30 minutes on a treadmill. But you're like fucking burn like all kinds of fucking calories doing it. Like it's fucking crazy.
See,
Like
that's
dripping sweat, dripping
listen. That is my type of workout, my friend. If I can work out and not feel like I'm working out, sign me up. That's where I'm at right there.
Well, and let me put it like the way I quit playing Beat Saber is just I run out of energy. Not because I could work out in it. Like I could play that game for hours and hours and hours if I could have the energy to do it.
So you're saying there's no stamina or gotcha system, right? Like you don't run out of stamina and you have to put the game down. No, you continue going until you physically run out of energy.
Exactly.
That's funny.
So,
that's hilarious.
But yeah, so I mean it's like that's what I'm saying. Like these games already consume you to a point with just the visuals. And I know we talked about this before, but when we get to like that, where like it tricks your body into thinking, like you feel, air blowing across your skin, you feel like that's when it gets crazy in my opinion. But anyways, I kind of went off on a little tangent because I just had to say, like, if you want to get into VR, I know there's complaints because Facebook now owns the Oculus Quest, Oculus in general. And there's lots of people complaining about the Quest 2 and that you have to have a Facebook account to use it and you have to link them and all that shit. But I'm telling you, for $299 fucking dollars, it is the best bang for the buck in VR. It is the best system in my opinion. You don't need trackers all around your room. It has all the tracking built into the headset using cameras and shit, and it works flawlessly. Has 90 hertz refresh rate, so you don't get all the motion sickness and stuff as much. It is the best $300 I've spent in a long time. Like I've been playing the shit out of it. My daughter's been playing the shit out of it. My mom has played the shit out of Beat Saber. She couldn't stop playing it either. And she's she's the overweight woman that is not in shape, has diabetes. She was working out for like an hour in that game. And again, like it's no issue. Like you get on a treadmill, like even myself, I work out 5 days a week. I do cardio and weights, and I still get on like an elliptical or a treadmill or an arc trainer to do 30 minutes of cardio. And I'm like 10 minutes in, fuck, I'm so tired. I'm done with this. Like still after years of working out like that every day, I still dread getting on a thing and just Beat Saber, fuck no. And not just that, they have other fitness apps, and they're all like you can go like rock climbing, dude, and like you're moving and like rock climbing, and I don't know. Anyways, I'm telling you, best $300 you'll spend. If you have $300 to spend, you should definitely check out the Quest 2, because it'll, I think, open your eyes to like, holy shit, this shit's coming quicker than we realize. Like we're almost there. Like the quality pretty much is almost there. Like 1 or 2 more iterations, the visuals are perfect. Like you see real enough that it looks like you're looking at a fucking TV screen in your head. No, right. No pixelation at all.
No cardboard.
Yeah, no cardboard. I will say, I think the biggest thing is getting the headset sizes down to where we can go to some kind of glasses or even eventually one day contact lenses where you don't have a big thing on your face. Because that reminds you that you're in there.
I mean, Google's working on those smart glasses and stuff. Like, I mean,
that was a long time. That was years though ago, and I don't think they're producing them anymore.
Are they not? I thought
those were, I think, were more augmented reality.
Oh, I wasn't talking about the reality ones. I was just talking about smart ones in terms of like having, like, instead of a smartphone, you could have it like built into the actual glasses. But I'm saying like, they were working on those things. And I know they had like prototypes for a while where, you had to be like in this program to test one out, but I know they're working on that, and I think they're still working on it. But I guess what I was trying to get at is it probably wouldn't be that hard, to transition something like that eventually into, some sort of, VR thing. I mean, obviously I know the technology might not be there yet, but I mean, again, you got to think in terms of being able to do that stuff without having, a giant helmet on. I mean, that'd be ridiculously cool.
Yeah. I think what gets us there, honestly, because I don't know how much silicone, like you need quite a bit of, like, even headsets. I mean, it's amazing what they can do, but I don't know. I mean, I guess you assume at some point the computers can get small enough to just fit in a pair of eyeglasses, but produce 4K graphics at 120 FPS in just little glasses. I don't know. My actual thought would be more of that VR headsets would eventually, or glasses or whatever, would just become displays. So they would just need to be powerful enough to run a 4K image at 120 FPS, and all of the computational power of rendering games and the multiverse and everything would be moving to like Google Stadia. What's Nvidia's? Doesn't Nvidia have a version of that where like you can play the games on the cloud? So you can like
Yeah, there's
basically
actually
play them on any, like you could have a Fire Stick and have Google State or Chromecast, have Google Stadia and play 4K games and this great stuff, all with, with no beast computer doing any rendering.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, there's other ones too. I've stumbled across a couple of them. I can't think of their names, but I've
Yeah, I
stumbled
can't
across a couple of
either
them
because
where there's actually just like you said, like portals online that you basically log into, and then you're utilizing some beefy computer, hosted elsewhere. You mean, that you then are just kind of like, it's almost like remote accessing is what you're doing. You're
yeah,
remote
yeah,
accessing
yeah.
this high end graphics, computer, for a certain amount of money or whatever it is, to then play those top-notch video games at ultra settings without having to invest that kind of money. So
Yeah, and the
I mean,
problem now is the lag. It's not quite
yep,
there, that technology either. But when that technology gets there and you're paying a monthly fee, like for Netflix, like $10 a month, $15 a month, you have a high-end graphic computer that can do all this rendering. And you don't have to worry about upgrading computers. You don't have to worry about upgrading, hardware all the time. You just need something that can stream that information. Then I really think that'll help accelerate shrinking the devices more quickly than we're going to be able to do with just right now trying to get silicone actually, processors and graphics cards and everything smaller, batteries and all that. Because imagine you don't have all that extra stuff in there. That gives you bigger batteries in there. That gives you bigger, like you can then expand some of the other stuff. But
yep,
yeah, I think that, a combination of tech continuing to shrink the hardware as, excuse me, as well as the that technology of being able to just stream, and like you said, have a remote computer somewhere doing all the heavy lifting will get us there much quicker than any single one of them will.
right. Yeah, no, it's super cool. Yeah, like I said, I'm excited for it too, man. Like I said, I'm excited. I'm a gamer. Obviously, I think my focus currently is more towards playing video games, you know what I mean? But in this, metaverse. But after having the discussion tonight on the podcast, I'm definitely more interested and intrigued now into the other aspects of it, not just centered around video gaming, you know what I mean? Which I think is
Yeah, I
really
mean,
cool.
imagine, and I agree. I'm more like, to me, it's the gaming, but it's what excites me is not the gaming, but what I'm missing gaming right now, which is right now, me and you are sitting across the United States talking to each other on Zoom, when in the metaverse, we're chilling in a room on a couch, looking at each other, and it feels just like real life. And
Right.
I can do that with all of my internet friends that I've made over the years, all my gaming buddies I've made over the years. And not just that, but all my other, like my parents. Let's say I'm in another, like a lot of people nowadays, because of work and stuff, move away from home. They got to move to this city or that city to find work. Imagine when you can sit down and forget gaming, but you can just sit down in your parents' living room, just like you remember it, just like it looks today. However, your mom just hung a new picture. You're there in that living room in a metaverse, sitting down, talking with your parents, your sisters, your friends back home, people across the world, whatever. I mean, that's just really cool in my opinion.
Oh yeah, no, it's definitely cool. Yeah, like I said, and I mean, again, I think I mean, yeah, the opportunities are just limitless when it comes to this stuff. I mean, and what you can build and what it can manifest into. I agree.
Yep. The future is definitely exciting, at least for me and Mr. Codations. But as Codation says, there'll always be that 5% that is scared shitless of it, and they'll probably burn us all and ruin it for us all.
Before we ever get there, because that's how
Exactly.
society works, my friend. We have to cater
Somebody
to our
ruin it for
weakest
us.
link. We have to cater to our weakest
God
link.
damn motherfuckers. And with
Yep.
that said, my friend, is there anything in regards to metaverses, anything else you want to mention, say, any other thoughts before we kind of wrap this up and throw out our social media handles? But anything relating to metaverses that you didn't get to touch on or anything like that,
No,
brother?
no, man, I think we did good. I mean,
Yeah, I think that's a
I
good
think we
spot to
covered a
wrap it
lot of
up.
the, yep, I think we covered a lot of avenues on it. And again, you guys listening, I mean, if you got anything else to share, obviously we'll just dive right into our social medias. I mean, if you guys have anything else to share with us, I'd love to know more or what your thoughts are. I know that a couple people that might be tuning into this, I'm not sure, but are pretty big experts in the metaverse, realm of things, whether it's gaming or, other words, but nevertheless, hit us up, man. Hit us up on social media. I mean, I do have a website just like Derek does. Mine is Kodeations.com. You can find all of my contact information, all of my links, my socials and stuff there. I do create content on YouTube as well. That's going to be my source or my main source of content creation. But again, Derek, it's been a pleasure, man, being on the podcast. Like I said, I love doing these and co-hosting them with you. And then as we, continue to grow, man. So again, thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. My pleasure as always. And I'm excited to, see where metaverses are at in another, where we're at in another 5 years with them. Guys, as Codation says, I also have a website. If you're looking to connect with me on any social media platforms, and as Codation says, if you guys listen to these podcasts, listen, I'll be the first to admit it. I'm not an expert. I love this kind of stuff. I listen to a lot of podcasts myself. I read a lot of fucking books. I look up internet articles. I watch YouTube videos. I find all of it very fascinating. But we get stuff wrong. I don't understand everything. I might have said something and sounded like I was confident as fuck. That's just my human side. If you got articles to share, if you got, things that you think might be interesting, like Codation says, hit us up, share those with us. Come hang out. We both have Discords. We both are on social media. But my stuff can be accessed from my website as well. omgitsderek.com. All my links to all my social media platforms are there. My, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, Instagram, everything. So just go to the website. All the previous episodes of the podcast, the video form, are also on the website as well as on a separate YouTube channel. You can find those from the website. But literally everything, if you got any questions, anything like that, the best way to find anything that we've talked about is through my website. All right, guys. Thanks
One
so
second.
much.
One more thing.
Yep.
I also want to invite anybody that is currently listening out there right now. We haven't done this yet, and we've asked for it numerous times on other platforms. If you guys have a special niche, maybe you are an expert in a specific topic, or hell, maybe you're not an expert and you just like talking about something specific, just like me and Derek do. Yeah, super passionate. There you go. That's the word. Super passionate about something. We invite you guys to get in contact with us. We can try to figure out what episode it would work best on. Or maybe it'd be something we don't want to cover. We'll let you know. Either way, we want to hear from you guys. If you want to be on the show or you want to do a some sort of a guest appearance, we would love to have you as well. So I just wanted to extend that because we haven't done that yet. So
yeah, absolutely. We are always looking for experts, or again, even people that are just really passionate and know a lot about a specific subject. We're always interested in talking with people like that. Like I said, we do have a person who I don't want to give too much away, but basically he's been working in social media for a long time, runs a big social media ad agency, kind of like a Gary V, but not as big as Gary V. But one of those type of characters, has been doing it for years and years and years, has a full agency around social media that we will be bringing on to do a second part of the kind of the dangers of social media. And there's also one other person that I have lined up. I don't even think I mentioned it to Codation yet, so I don't want to say it on air until I talk to him about it. But I do have another person as well that I think we could do. It would be super, super cool. So we will announce that, but we do have people coming on. We are interested in other people. I'm rambling. Thank you guys for listening, and I hope you all have a great night. Codations, tell everybody goodbye and good night.
Alrighty, man. I will see you, each and every one of you guys later. Have a good night. Thank you for tuning in.
Later, guys.